Sports Take. It is episode 61, your podcast for unmuzzled sports talk, focusing on the business of sports. Of course, we are live here on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, live streaming an inside look into the sports world through the lens of a media member here, riseanddraft.com, of course, Ryan Roberts, and my good friend, a legend, DFS legend as well, but an 18-year scouting vet in the NFL, CFL, and 3 straight Arena League championships with the Arizona Rattlers, Mr. David Turner. David, how are you today, my friend?
I am doing fantastic, and I don't know if I'm reaching legendary status on DFS, but this guy is getting good. I'm telling you, I made money this weekend on DFS for the first time I broke a profit, so I'm very excited about that. My wagers didn't go well because I went big. I didn't go small. I went a 7-team and a 14 parlay, and I don't even want to talk about them boys from Texas just not being able to tackle. I mean, that was a 3.5 point game. If they just tackle that kid and they kick the field goal, let's go. This boy's going home with a lot of dough. But no, they can't tackle. That just drove me nuts. Wow. And then I don't want to talk about the Patriots, proverbial crap down the leg, against the Houston Texans. They made Davis Mills look like he was freaking Brett Favre at times.
He looked good, man. He looked good.
Oh, you and I both agree. We liked him. We just weren't sure how they were going to work in that system. But now that they're tailoring the system to him, we think he's going to be a decent player. I mean, he has tools and skills. But again, coming out in his third start looking that good, that was kind of ridiculous by the Patriots defense. I think they kind of lollygagged and then they got their ass handed to them a little bit. Of course, they won the game, but, the spread was like freaking – 7.5 or whatever, and they only won by 3. So,
yeah, no, it was a mess. I'm glad to hear though, man, that you are getting better at DFS. Though I know they say that you can't teach old dog to new tricks, but here you are. So
here I am, whole new world.
All right, I'm clipping that. I'm going to tell someone to clip that, put that on Twitter. But like I said, we are live here. We're an interactive podcast. We have some mailbag questions that we're covering also. But if you want to throw in a question at any point, we're going to be talking Little John Gruden, the saga that has now come to an end, part of the Las Vegas Raiders organization, of course. We'll get heavy into that. Also going to talk about the Urban Meyer, I guess saga is the best way to put that one as well. It's been a journey that I think a lot of could have predicted, maybe not quite to I don't think anybody would have predicted the path that we got to this point, but I don't think many people had optimistic views of the Urban Meyer situation. And then we'll hit some mailbags. Before we do, would you be a parent of a high school athlete trying to make it to the next level? If you answered yes, then why not secure coaching for them from an experts? Here at Maverick Sports Consulting, we work with your high school athletes of all sports to create a strategy for the recruiting process. With limited scholarships given each year, having a good pointed recruiting plan helps our clients secure their opportunity to play collegiate sports. We focus on your transcripts, your film, leadership, and more to set your goals and create pathways to get to them. Whether you're looking to attend an SEC school or Slippery Rock, we can support your efforts to get to those goals in 2022. Contact us at mavericksportsconsulting.com today. So, David, I think we should start with Gruden. Obviously, it is the most recent news. It transpired, of course, we're recording on a Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern time. So this news broke on Monday nights during Monday Night Football, of course, as if we're just trying to enjoy our night of football. Then we get this fantastic news. Of course, John Gruden, a couple years ago, signed what at the time was a historic deal. It was a 10-year contract, some crazy number like that. And so far in the beginning of the year, it looked like, hey, man, like they might be turning around a little bit. The Las Vegas Raiders started, I think, 3-0. They've lost the last 2, but like they started out pretty well. They've been, the butt of jokes a little bit. They've been ridiculed for some draft misses over the last couple of years, but they were playing pretty solid football. And then, of course, a few days ago, you hear the rumors, or we'll call it rumors. Obviously, it's been proven of what has transpired, but you hear about an email that was sent by John Gruden with inappropriate language referring to DeMaurice Smith, who, of course, is the president of the NFLPA. And this did transpire, though, just to put into context, about 10 years ago. So it was far into the past. I think 2011 was when this incident was uncovered. So we're talking about an email that is 10 years old, but regardless, he made a very inappropriate comment about his facial feature on his face. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. I don't want to get heavy into exactly what was said into this conversation, but that gets uncovered. And then, David, you hear early evening, at least on Eastern time, right, that this there is a little more smoke to this fire than just one email. We're talking about a lot of misogynistic language. We're talking about racist language. We're talking about a lot of different things that has been uncovered through Gruden in emails in the past, shared directly with leadership at the time for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And a lot of negativity, man, that's happening right now. And of course, just a couple hours after that big news bomb dropped of like some of the leaked language that he used and some of the things that he was saying in the emails, he decides to resign as head coach. I thought it was going to happen after I saw the news and the recent evidence that was brought against him. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word evidence for some reason. I'm running on about 3 hours of sleep, so David Turner, stop looking at me like that. But so you think that it's going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen that night. I didn't think it was going to happen within a couple hours. Let's just start with general thoughts, David, to this, obviously, this very unfortunate incident that has not only, people are going to say, oh, John Gruden, the Las Vegas Raiders, this affects a lot of people over a long period of time.
Well, and now maybe I have this wrong because it's all unfolding so fast. What I understand is that these emails came out as part of the Washington Redskin probe.
You're right. It was Bruce Allen, right? I think I misread that. Yes.
I believe that was the case. That he was emailing Bruce Allen. They worked together at Tampa Bay. They're dear friends. They've known each other since the first stint that they were both with the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And so, we'll get into the hypocrisy of how Daniel Snyder, the owner, is not getting in trouble, but then Gruden is getting absolutely blasted right now. Right. But besides that, we'll stay on focus and on point.
Well, I just want to say, I want to apologize for my misinformation that I put out there, because I do remember now Bruce Allen was involved. I think Sean McVay was actually on this email chain. Of course, he was an assistant coach with the Washington Redskins at the time, now the Washington football team. And there was a few other assistant coaches, a few members of leadership. So thank you for correcting me on that in that instance.
Right. And Sean, I think, was with them in Tampa, right? That's where he knew the group from.
Well, I think he was in Washington with Jay, so I think that's kind of where the meshing happens. Yeah,
there you go. So again, if you follow this chain, mm-hmm. there's potential, and I don't know. They say there's 650,000 emails they've collected.
That's crazy.
So, let's just say there's potential that McVay, the OC in Seattle, I think Ragone, the OC that's in the Falcons, Jay Gruden, they're all on, they could all be on this chain. And if any of them chimed in or said anything else, now that Gruden's not only resigned his position, but has been taken out of the Ring of Honor at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that was the new news tonight on this. You're looking at a situation that is really going to get more ugly than anything quickly. So, when I look at it, and here's, I'm going to take two ways on it, and the audience comment all you want. Like, here's the thing. It's 10 years ago.
Right.
Doesn't excuse the language, doesn't excuse what's said. But if the man has grown in those 10 years in any way, I think Gruden could have saved his job and position. But I think because, and this is just me saying this, he hasn't grown, and people aren't going to come to bat for him and battle it. That's why he resigned and bowed out. And I'll be honest, I don't think, when I read his comments yesterday, and I didn't read comments that were like 100% apologetic.
For sure.
It was more, I don't feel that way. This isn't the way I feel. You can't, I'm a good person. I've done a lot for people. It's not like, hey, I've grown. Those were poorly tasted emails. I shouldn't have sent them in an environment. Obviously, workplace is not a place for any of my personal feelings to come out and be shared in group emails. Like, there's ways to say it. But when he said what he said yesterday, I'm like, this is a guy who doesn't feel like he did wrong. And then I just go right back to white privilege. And I'm a white man, it is. But to go out and be able to say these kind of things about D. Smith, he said negative things, homophobic type things about the commissioner and about gay. What was
Michael Sam?
Michael Sam.
Yep.
And and then he said stuff about women being on the field as officials and stuff.
Apparently, they were sending pictures of like topless cheerleaders or something like that too. There's a lot of stuff in there. So
there's a lot. Well, I was just talking about the business, But again, yeah, But I'm saying, like, you talked about, he made racial comments, he made anti-homophobic comments, he made misogynistic comments, and stuff. So, and again, it's 10 years ago. If he really felt he changed in those 10 years, there was ways to word it. And if people around the league were like, John's really changed, this is shocking that these emails from 10 years ago are this graphic, because where he's at today, it doesn't seem like John. You know what I mean? But that didn't happen. Nobody came to the defense and no one rode in on a horse to champion him to keep his job or anything, Now, I have other reasons to believe why that happened, but right now, the facts are he made these, gross, incredibly offensive,
insensitive.
I mean, we can keep going, right? Insensitive, downright degrading emails. Yep. And he was working as a commentator at ESPN, and he sent it to a professional organization. I don't care if it's your brother or not. He sent it to the organization. It's like, you didn't keep it to yourselves. You didn't do personal email to personal email where it was business emails. That's why they had, jurisdiction to get them, because they were business emails.
Right.
So if you wanted to send something to your brother's personal email and he could have pulled it up on his phone, that's one thing. But like you said, there were several coaches at the Washington, football team back then, Washington Redskins, that were on this chain. There were, executives on this chain, and he felt comfortable enough to do that.
Yes, and we all know why he feels comfortable enough. You already talked about it. It's the privilege of being a white male in the society. Like, let's call it what it is, especially in the game of football too. And I think it was, and a couple points that I wanted to make was, I think it was Jim Trotter, I heard, had a little excerpt on this today. And he said their apologies aren't going to do anything. These, donating money to, Black Lives Matter movement or, just social justice issues, whatever it is, that's not going to fix anything until there are people up top making decisions that are diverse, that have the ability to have an actual say in the situation. That's when things are going to change. I know we talked about this issue a ton, but I will say this, David, all the eyes are on John Gruden right now, and rightfully so, for doing this heinous thing that he did. You are kidding yourself if you are to believe that he is the only person in this sports, in the position that he is at or higher, that says things like this that go unnoticed. So there is definitely a problem up top. And I think that these are the moments where, hey, is change actually going to happen? And I don't want to say hate. I don't think that we meant to go this route, because we're trying to talk about an isolated incident. But this is a moment where we can elicit change. There's could something good could come out of this, as weird as that is to say. And I think Jim Trotter, again, had a little excerpt, I believe, on NFL Network where he talked about it. I think Steve Weish was on the clip I saw as well. Of course, friend of the show, Steve Weish. And I will applaud his sentiment there, and I will agree. And I want everyone to understand that real quick. We're all going to look down on John Gruden. We're all going to be pissed off about John Gruden. We're all going to cancel John Gruden, and rightfully so for what he did. but do not make the mistake and think that this is just an isolated incident. This is not the only time at that level or higher in the sport of football that this is happening.
No, it's not. And again, it's someone's hand got caught in the cookie jar, but with 650 flipping emails,
very stupid.
There's more to come. Like, don't get me twisted on this. John's probably the first domino.
For sure.
Okay. And now I think I'm pretty much positive there's going to be more to come from this. I mean, because all the rumors around there of baiting not baiting, but hooking or trying to pimp out the cheerleaders. Let's put it out what it was. Yeah. And sending them on photo shoots and then having, big executives from the, club being there, whatever the cases were. It was completely inappropriate behavior. So if you think this is the only inappropriate behavior that they discovered,
yep.
I got some land in Florida for you to buy too. There's a lot more in there. And again, for me, I think personally, and this is not inside information or private conversation, so don't take this the wrong way because I did work for the Raiders, but yep. I do personally feel there were folks at the Raiders that aren't really happy with Gruden, his work ethic, and his ability to really deliver, wins for the organization in his third year. I mean, he won week 1 in overtime against Baltimore on a really freak play, and then they go up to the Steelers, solid win up there, 26-17.
Was the Ravens the one that was in overtime where there was a completion to Zay Jones? It was like it was like a zero, like it was like cover zero. Everyone
they thought they were the corner totally thought they were just going to run the ball out and kick a field goal, and boom, he hits him for a long pass. It was just like I said, it was a free call. Then they have to go to overtime. Oh, they're up 8.5 points. This one cost me money, so it's painful. They were up 8.5 points, and they had 1:30 to go, and they had to go to overtime to win that game, 31-28, when they were favored by 5.
Yeah.
Then they lose, 28-14 to the Chargers, and then they lose to the Bears, which I don't know how anybody loses to the Bears this year. I mean, they can't even figure out their identity, but yet they're going to lose not only little bit, 20-9, 20-9, and they lose. Stop it. And to the Bears, and now here's the deal. Then all these rumors come out, and people in the building are already questioning his work ethic.
Yeah.
And how much he really cares right now. And boom, now they can get rid of him. And that 10-year contract that you talked about is, it's honestly, there's a code of conduct, a personal code of conduct in everybody's, contract. I don't know if they can use that from emails 10 years ago. Right. Honestly, I don't know if that's possible.
Because it's not during the tenure of the team, right? So, you can't use that.
But because John chose to resign over it instead of be fired over it, I don't know how that plays in legally. Maybe we can get a lawyer on at another junction and talk about workplace law and that, because I truthfully just don't know. So I don't want the audience to think that I'm trying to cover up for them. I just don't know.
Sure.
The end of the day, though, here's the situation we're in: is that we got John Gruden, week 5 of the NFL season, with a team that's 3-2 on the street, looking for work or, out there. I mean, of course, he's not out there holding a coffee can, but, he's literally looking for work. He's out on the street. So, folks, I think there's more to come this season. And I was on Patricia Trainer's show, as I am every day after the Giants play. Yeah. And, her and I were talking about the Giants situation too. So, it's a situation where with a 17-week season, it's going to grind not only on the players, but on the coaches and on the staffs and everybody. So people have to really pay attention that there's going to be more blood in the water than just John Gruden. I think out of these emails too, there's going to be more blood in the water and I would like to move it into, I don't know how Dan Snyder, I really don't know how the ownership groups in the NFL can continue to protect their own and
Right.
punish others.
Mhm.
You know, like Dan Snyder, you cannot tell me Dan Snyder doesn't know the culture in that building that he goes to work in every day and that he's around every day for 20 years now.
Yeah.
You can't tell me he doesn't know the culture and what's going on there, that he wasn't privy to some of these emails, or, it might not have went to him, but there was probably a elbow in the ribs. Hey, Dan, look at this one. Hey, Dan, look what Gruden said this time. Hey, you're never going to believe the email I got from John yesterday. Oh, my God. It was hilarious. It was about D. Smith. Oh, it had this cheerleader in it. You know what I mean? You can't tell me he didn't know. He was just blind and oblivious to what's going on. But yet he's surviving at this point. Like, he gets to keep the team. I mean, he doesn't even get, we saw the ownership from the Panthers get ousted over sexual harassment, right? And now Dan Snyder is getting to keep the team. Like 650,000 emails, and you can't tell me there's one in there that Dan Snyder didn't say something or do something.
Well, I'm interested to see what the next axe to fall, or whatever the correct term is there, of what is the next person or thing that gets uncovered in this mess of an email chain, because I would like to assume, and I could be wrong, I guess. I mean, it's very low percentage, I would say here, but I don't think John Gruden was the only one that said something inappropriate in these emails. So I think that's pretty safe to say. So I want to see the next step. I could not agree more on Dan Snyder. I mean, it's been highly talked about and publicized for basically his entire tenure. The insensitivity that he has and how he treats a lot of people around him. So a lot of axes to fall. I'm interested, David. I think the last point I want to ask you about this issue is, now it's putting, obviously, the Las Vegas Raiders, like you said, week 5 of a 17-week season, in a very negative situation here. Okay, and a 3-2 team, they're in the thick of it, right? Like, I think we talked about them a couple weeks ago where we said, like, are they a true contender? Are they a little bit of a pretender? And I think that both of us kind of said, like, we're somewhere in the middle. Like, we'll see how it goes. I think that this is going to go not the best of the world, right? Like, I think that there's flaws in this roster, and obviously losing your head coach in week 5 and having all this negativity surrounding your organization is not ideal for success, right? But long term, what is the outlook for the Las Vegas Raiders? I have to think that they're going to start making a list of candidates for, pretty quick here, and try to figure out, like, what the target is going to be. Obviously, when we get to that period, obviously we're not in that period. We need to play football, but you have to think that the Las Vegas Raiders are in a tough situation, not only because of Gruden, but also Gruden brought in Mike Mayock, his guy, as the general manager. Like, is he going to outlast this with the next coaching regime? Like, what is the status, in your opinion, of this franchise moving forward with all this uncertainty right now?
Well, one point you didn't bring up, and I'm not sure if you remember or not.
Yep.
But because I follow the Raiders so closely, obviously, about 10 days or 12 days before training camp, on the same day, they fired the president, CEO, and CFO.
Right.
So since training camp, they've been operating with their, chief legal advisor, Dan Ventrelli, as their president. And and from what I understand, it's an interim title. He could earn the permanent title, but right now it's just interim. So they are in a situation where at the end of the season, they could be looking for a president, a GM, and a head coach, all in the same year. And what's the Remember the Titans quote about leadership?
Don't tell me. Let me think. No. Who says it? Julius Campbell? Julius Campbell say it? Or is it Bertier?
Yep.
All right, Julius Campbell.
Nope.
Leader.
Julius says it to Bertier.
He says, something about reflection. I'm trying to remember. Tell me, David Turner. I know it, though. Darn it.
Attitude reflects leadership.
Leadership. Captain. I got it. All right. Gotcha.
So, again, if your leadership is not reflecting or predicting or projecting the right attitude, then that's what you're going to get back. Mm-hmm. So if you have to fire the president, CEO, CFO, and now your coach resigns, what's really going on in that building? And, I've heard rumors that Mayock is not all in, and he's been trying to find an out. Be honest with you, I think he wants to get back to commentating.
Well, I feel like he's been the fall guy for a couple years because everything I hear is that Gruden's the guy that makes the picks. He's the one that is more control of roster construction, all that type of stuff. But
I think Mayock wants to get back to commentating and be back where he's like the man on the screen.
So you can talk about bubble butts and sand in the pants, all that good stuff.
And yeah, moving in a phone booth, all that stuff. So all that stuff that means absolutely nothing to anybody, but him. So my whole thing is, I think the Raiders are on a major reset when it comes to what's coming down the hill. You have, I hope Mark Davis is surrounding himself with the right people to in these times, and he's not putting people around him that are just going to guide him down, bad alleys. Because he's really in a situation. I mean, they bought the basketball team up there, and now they have the Raiders. So I mean, he's really solidifying his foothold in Vegas, which is a great city. It's an incredible place to live and be. And I just hope that, again, he's surrounding himself with the right people to make the decisions that he needs to going forward. For me, I think, I could give you a list of candidates that I think would be vying for that job. And Wink Martindale would be number one. The Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator. He was a Raider before. I could see him wanting it. I imagine Tom Cable. I was actually kind of surprised when they gave an interim head coach label. They didn't give it to Tom Cable because he'd been the head coach there before. And him and Mark have a relationship. So that kind of surprised me a little bit. But I mean, there's plenty. And David Shaw, the head coach at Stanford, was a Raider at one point, So again, if they're going back into the Raider tree, which is a classic Raider move, there's people that are there. But I think there's a lot of people that want that job, honestly, because of Derek Carr. I mean, you can say what you want about Derek Carr. He might not be the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league, but he's inside the top 10. And statistically 2 weeks ago, he was leading the league in passing and touchdowns and all sorts of categories. So again, I think it's going to be a hot job coming forward. And they haven't paid Carr yet. So I think a coach is going to want to know the answer to that, is if you're going to pay Carr or not pay Carr, because I don't want the job if he's not here. Or they're going to find coaches that say, well, we can draft a guy if they fall enough in the draft process this year, and get a rookie contract in here, and you guys can let Carr go. Carr go. But
oh my God,
you never know.
Oh my
Dad jokes.
You never know. Got some S.
Never
Carr
know. He could let S. Carr go.
I'm gonna keep drinking my cup of Joe.
So again, I think they're in a major reset, which is terrible because they were just in a reset 3 years ago when they brought Gruden and Mayock in before they moved down to Vegas, right? And then they hit the pandemic, and now they're going to be in another major reset. So, yeah.
Tough situations. We want to get into another situation here in a second. Of course, Mr. Urban Meyer, which a lot of conversation. We'll get into that in a second. Before we do, have you secured any sponsorships with your name, image, and likeness yet? No. What's keeping you from earning money or gaining products today? Probably access to companies. Maverick Sports Consulting can connect those dots for you. We believe in the power of athletes making a living off of their own likeness while going to college. If it's simply that you don't have the access to companies, don't let that keep you from being successful. Contact us at Maverick Sports Consulting so we can help you navigate your path to gaining corporate sponsorships for your collegiate career. An athlete's earning potential is unlimited. Why wait until tomorrow to start earning today? It doesn't matter what sport you play. We help all our clients achieve their goals. Just contact us at Maverick Sports Consulting today. TikTok, the clock is ticking. All right, David. So we're talking about Mr. Urban Meyer now here. All right, so let's paint the picture. This was fun. So last week I was at the Notre Dame Cincinnati game. And after the game, a video got pumped out there. Well, maybe let's not start there. Actually, there's been a lot of rumblings over the first few weeks. Jaguars have looked futile. Urban Meyer's had some quotes that have not looked great in the media's eyes, and he has also already put out a couple things that's like out to the general public, to the fan base. Hey, be patient with us. We'll get there, which is code for we suck. I understand. Don't get too mad at me because I need my job. All right, so that happens. And then last week, so they're playing a football game. Instead of going home with the team after the game, he goes to his old stomping grounds in Ohio and hangs out. Supposedly from his accounts, he was with his family first, going out to dinner, and then across the street there were some people that were like, "Hey, Urban, come on over." So he goes over. And, he's in a situation where there's a young woman that is giving him a little bit of a lap dance, grinding on him a little bit. And his hand looks pretty inappropriately placed on this young lady. And the morality part of everything is, he's a married man. He was in a very precarious situation. But the bigger picture here is, so you don't go home with your team so you can do this stuff as a married man, inappropriate, obvious contact with a young lady. And it's a big distraction because on Monday, they did not have their team activity because he canceled it because he had to deal with, obviously, the backlash from the incident. And all the reports are out there, and there's several quotes, and go look it up because I don't have it word for word in front of me. Basically, the players are calling him a joke a little bit. They're laughing about it. When he addressed the team, apparently he left the room, and then everyone just started kind of busting out in laughter and like, is this guy serious type of thing? So it's bad right now in Jacksonville. I had the over-under on one season. Whether Urban would last into next year, could it be this season? Could it be? If something else happens, man, it's got to be the end of the rope already. And it's such a shame because there is some young talent on Jacksonville to get excited about. There absolutely is. The Robinson kid, the running back's a good football player. They obviously have the first overall pick from last year, Trevor Lawrence. There's players there, Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark. There's some dudes on that offense specifically.
Jones, the other receiver.
Marvin Jones is a solid football player, but I was talking more like the younger guys. So there's like a decent.
I was saying they got talent. They got was it Josh Allen rushing the passer?
Yeah, no, there is absolutely talent, which was what I was trying to illustrate. And instead of talking about this young team that is trying to get it turned around, we're talking about Urban Meyer, and I don't want to. Well, no, let's make it Urban Meyer bashing. We can do that. Why not? It's our show. So everything's been highly publicized, and it's his leaving of Florida for some health reasons, quickly turning into an Ohio State job, and then leaving Ohio State because of some more health reasons, and everything that follows Urban is always a sanctions coming. Something's going to come out in the media about him, and he always escapes the moments. And this moment has caught up with him, and he is at the highest level of football, and it is an extremely bad look, and it is taking away from what should be a rebuilding team that has some talent. So, David, are you surprised? Surprised might not be the right word because I don't think either one of us thought that the Urban Meyer tenure in Jacksonville would be a successful one. But is he going to last the season? I don't know if the answer to that one, actually.
I told you when the USC job became available, Urban Meyer wants a USC job. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was set up to where he thought he'd get fired for it just so he could get out.
Self-sabotage, you think? You think so?
Might be because, let me roll this back. Like you said, there's been some sound bites that just piss me off because when he goes and says, "Oh, the NFL is like playing Alabama every week."
Oh my God!
What did you think it was? You're gonna get Kent State? Like seriously, you thought like the worst team in the NFL was gonna be Kent State or somebody that you just can beat up on because you got better recruits, and that's all he ever did. That's what you got to understand. When he was in Florida, he had better recruits, and then they were gonna get sanctioned for crap he did, so he left. When he had Ohio State, he he had better recruits. And therefore, when he was going to get in trouble, he left. Now he gets to the NFL and he goes, oh, it's going to be a cakewalk. No, it's not. These are
you can't handpick your players. Like it's a monopoly at this point. It's not just like a free range, like, oh, come here, come to Ohio State, come to Florida. Like you have to actually develop a roster and you have to coach now. It's not just simply signing the best recruits, like you're saying.
Well, you have to coach, but you also have to develop. And not only that, everybody else gets paid to play too. Okay. This is a situation where you have coaches whose livelihoods depend on beating you.
Right.
You're not God. Your players make more money than you do in the NFL. So you have to learn how to really develop the relationships with them and understand they're almost equals. Basically, they're not like, I mean, they're younger. So I don't want to say they're not equals, but I'm saying they're younger men, but they're men. They're in a profession. They're earning money to, feed their families. You got to respect that part of the game. And I don't think Urban respects that part of the game at all when it comes to the professional level. Right. Okay. And in addition, like you alluded to, you don't have the top recruiting class. You had a hell of a draft, but then one of your first round draft picks got hurt and now he's out for the season and Etienne. Yeah. So guess what? You got to figure a way to move around that and keep it rolling. And again, Urban wants a week off. I mean, I have never, ever, ever, in 18, 19 years, whatever I've been doing this now, heard of a head coach not fly back on the team plane.
That's weird, right?
Unless there was a death in the family.
Sure.
Or there was a health reason why, like a coach, a couple coaches had to stay over in hospitals and stuff the night of the game was over or whatever and fly back later. Right. But those were extreme situations. I never heard a coach not flying back with the team, even to hang out with family. And I think this was after the Thursday night game, if I was correct, right? Is this the Thursday night?
I think you are. Yes.
So this was after the Thursday night game where you're going to have a long weekend anyways. But your team is over at this point. They're over. So hanging out in Ohio so you can get a break and hang out with your family when your team is over instead of getting back down there to Jacksonville and getting back to work to figure out how to turn this season around when you're 0-3 or 0-4 at that point. It's like, are you flipping kidding me? I mean, 100%. You got to be kidding me. I have never in my life heard of a coach not take the team plane back. Usually, pole position 1 on the plane is owner. Pole position 2 is the coach. When the players get on the plane, they see the coach and they see the owner, and that's setting the tone that everybody rides together. Like, we are in this together. When the players get on the plane and that seat's empty, and then this tape comes out, no wonder people are saying he's a joke. No wonder people are like, we can't follow this guy. I heard one player called him a straight con artist. Con artist. Because they don't believe a word coming out of his mouth. And so for me, I'm just like, dude, seriously? I said it when they hired him, this was going to be a joke and a mess. I said it the whole time. I got family members defending this asshole, saying that it's between him and his wife. I'm like, no, it's not. You have a personal conduct clause in your contract. You're contractually obligated to carry yourself in a professional manner as a leader of the organization in which you represent. This is the NFL, fuckers. This isn't fuck around and figure it out. This is the NFL. You be prepared and get to it. Like, I worked in that league for over 10 years. I respect the hell out of representing and putting any teams on my chest, whether it was the Panthers, the Niners, the Raiders, the Giants, or the Carolina Panthers. All 5 teams I worked for, Miami Dolphins. Every time I put their logo on my chest, it was game time. I was there to represent that organization to the best of my ability and in the manner in which they dictate. And you don't wear the logo out drinking. You don't wear the logo out hanging out. If people know who you are, you don't go rolling out and doing that kind of stuff. That's not what you do. That's just honestly, it's a JV mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm sick of it. Like and that's why I wanted to do these topics tonight, because I'm sick of these privileged men who I can't understand why they get jobs. And my cousin was like, well, he wins everywhere he goes. He out recruits wherever he goes, and he has violations everywhere he goes. So that's why he wins. Not that he's a good coach, but he's really just a con artist that he smiles pretty and people defend, which I don't get at all. You know, there are plenty of coaches that are good coaches of color that don't get a second opportunity, and coaches like Lane Kiffin and, you know, Urban Meyer and John Gruden, and they all get 2 and 3 and 4 chances to coach, and Lane might be at 6 or 7 now. And again, is he a good coach? Yes, he's a good coach, but he's a really immature individual who, you know, again, plays the privilege to the point where it's sickening. Absolutely sickening. And Urban Meyer, I'm sorry, bro. I'm going to come at you hard. I didn't like you before this. I don't like you even more now. Like, you don't respect the seat. You're in the seat and you don't respect it. And you've lost your team. You've lost your locker room. There ain't been one player that's come out to defend you. There ain't one player that's come out and said, you know what, it's between him and his wife, or, you know what, men make mistakes, and I still believe him as. There's not one.
But
Not
it's not
one
even
quote.
it's not even about that though. And I don't want to, like, I'm not, like, listen to me real quick, okay? Married man, I believe in I believe in being respectful and being honest to your whoever your significant other is, okay? For me, I saw it and I was like, wow, what a scumbag, right? Like, obviously he's a married man and he's got this girl grind all over him. Like, that's a scumbag. The main issue here though is not that. I'm departmentalizing this for a second, okay? The fact is that in a struggling situation where you're supposed to be a leader of men, you are making it about yourself and you are being selfish in that regard. So forget about what the actual action was. The issue is that you're not there for your team that just lost a close football game after getting blown out multiple weeks in a row, and you're trying to be a leader of men, and you chose instead to look out for yourself. That is the main issue here. You are putting the spotlight on yourself when you are supposed to be the leader here. You are supposed to be able to look at these guys in the face and they know that you are going to take them in the right direction. How can anybody trust who he is? How can anybody trust him in that locker room? They obviously don't, because the minute he leaves, they laugh. And there's been multiple reports. This isn't one person's like, oh, I heard they might have left. No, people are saying like he's getting laughed at. Okay, so the respect is gone. And then I will point out to this little section too, David. Did you hear his press conference after it happened, where his apology? Right, dude, I'm telling you, man. As a teacher in the education field, right, like when you take a kid out to the hallway and you say, "Do you feel like you made the wrong decision there?" They kind of go like, yeah, like they mumble, right? Like, yeah, probably not the best decision I could have made. That was exactly Urban Meyer in that thing. He's like, oh yeah, just stupid, man. Like, it's just a stupid, selfish decision. I was like, dude, this guy's not even like, raise your voice, look at everyone in the eye, and if you're going to be a man here, then be a man and say, you know what? I was selfish and that was dumb, and I should not have put myself in that situation, and I should not have made this about myself. Talk like you're an adult. Talk like you're a man. Do not mumble under your breath because you got caught and you have to apologize now. You're not sorry for anything. You're sorry you got caught. So, and I deal with 12-year-olds every single day where it's the same thing. Again, you take them out and they're kind of just like, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts. I'm sorry I got caught here. Like, it's not sorry that they did anything wrong. It's sorry that they got caught. And it's the same thing for Urban Meyer. If you're going to be the leader, if you want to pretend to be the man, then be the damn man, dude. Like, everybody makes mistakes. This is a terrible one. Everyone makes mistakes, and you should never make a mistake to this degree. But at the end of the day, if you're going to make a mistake, own your shit, man. Like, own up to it. Act like a man. Puff out your chest and say, I fucked up, and I can fix this, okay? I'm sorry. I did something wrong. I can fix it. End of rant, David Turner.
No, I'm with you. And like every organization, they have that conversation with players before bye weeks or long trips. And this one, I'm sure they have the conversation. Hey, don't be that guy. don't be the guy that when we come back have made the mistake and it's going to cost you your job or something. Make sure you're not that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what?
He's that
You
guy.
know, he's the guy, and he's the head coach. It's the same time. It reminds me of when Steve Keim on 4th of July stood up in front of the team and said, "Don't be that guy." And then on 4th of July, who got popped for the DUI? Steve Keim. And he, and it was just like, again, he got a slap on the wrist, and he's still the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals. So, it's a situation where this whole broadcast and episode tonight, everybody, was really to highlight how unjust this is, because Urban Meyer gets caught fondling a young woman on camera in a bar in Ohio where everybody knows who he is. And he just felt like his privilege was going to get him through. And so far it has. It didn't cost him his job because, again, like what Ryan ranted about, which is a great rant, by the way, that it's about being a leader of men, and it's about taking responsibility for your actions. And when you're in leadership roles, you asked to be in that role.
Mm-hmm.
You tried to get into that role. You positioned yourself to be there. And it's not just like, oh, I'm here, so now I get, forgiveness. No, you have to ask for the forgiveness. And you have to own up that you did something wrong. And in addition to all that being said, as a leader of an 0-4 football team, your decision was to stay in Ohio to get a break because it's too hard. Is it too hard, Urban? Is it really? Because you're earning $9.5 million for this year, and it's too hard to earn 9.5 and have to coach the team. Is it too hard to get on the team plane and go back to Jacksonville where it's sunny and warm and beautiful, and you can't fly your flipping family down there to hang out while you go to work and figure out how to pull your team out of the Ophir fucking drawer?
Yeah.
And you decide to hang out, and then you decide, okay, you had dinner with your wife. Cool. Then you decide to go across the street and have a few beers. Okay, that's fine. I have nothing. Everybody who ever listens to this show knows I have nothing wrong with getting a couple beers in me. Let's go. But then and again, I don't know this girl. I don't know if it was arranged. I don't know if she met you there. I don't know nothing.
Yeah.
But let's just say you met her there, which I don't believe a fucking cent. But let's just say you met her at the bar that night for a minute, and she starts grinding on you. Your hand's not on your leg. Your hand's not like, oh, whoa, what are you doing? No, you're encouraging the behavior where your hand's at. You're caressing and fondling her derriere, and you're enjoying it. So don't stand up in front of me and say, hey, I did something wrong. I'm a bad boy. You encourage the behavior with your actions and your response to what was going on. Now, I'm not a married man anymore, but when I was married, that was a no-no.
Yeah.
That was a no.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to go out here and do that and parade around and be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars? Like, seriously, respect the seat, man.
And I would say, and we're going to move on from these topics, but both men that we've talked about tonight, Jon Gruden and Urban Meyer, it's ironic because we talked a lot about leadership right here. And we talked a lot about, leader of men and, practicing what you preach. These men are also deciding who are good decision makers. They're preaching, we want these class acts who make great decisions. And how could you possibly preach that to your team right now? And talking about Urban Meyer specifically, how can he stand in front of his team right now and say, you all need to make good decisions when you just made a terrible decision and you have already proven that you are not a good decision maker? And I think there's a lot of layers to that conversation. We're going to obviously get more into that because the Urban Meyer saga is not over. And there's a lot more that's probably going to come out of the Jon Gruden saga too. But we want to turn the page and move into some mailbag questions for tonight. We have 3 mailbag questions for tonight. Shout out to the people that sent it through the Twitterverse. Starting with Derek, who's at Steelers_DB, asked about what is your biggest concern with Kaiir Elam, cornerback out of Florida. He said his is his deep speed tendency to get stacked. And what scheme do you personally feel like is the best fit for him? So a little background on Kaiir Elam. David, maybe you remember his brother, Matt Elam, who's a safety that came out of there a few years ago. Did not turn out too great, was a first-round pick by the Baltimore Ravens, was a fantastic football player out of Florida, and was not very good in the NFL. So Kaiir is a long-limbed, listed around 6'2", 200 to 205 pounds, somewhere in that ballpark. So he's got a really nice frame. Long arms, I would be willing to say that he's definitely at least in the 32-inch ballpark, maybe 32.5-inch arms, maybe a little longer, could be almost 33. He's got some length to him. So I want to start with the scheme specifically. He reminds me a lot last year when Patrick Surtain came out, Patrick Surtain Jr., right? Pat Surtain was also long-limbed. I would not have said that Patrick Surtain had the greatest long speed of all time, so I would agree with Derek. I don't think that Kaiir Elam has the greatest long speed of all time. But what I think that he is, technically sound, press man corner. He's going to get up in your face, and he's going to use his length to his best ability. And then I also do think that in zone coverage, whether we're playing 2 or 3 or whatever, 4, like we're match coverage, whatever it is, I think Kaiir Elam, like Pat Surtain, has great zone instincts. I think that he has a really good understanding and recognition of what is developing in front of him. He can work up on shorter routes. He can stay in the deep third. Like, I think that he is stylistically best suited for a press man system. But I also think that if you're a cover 3 heavy system, if you're Dan Quinn over there in Dallas, like, would fit perfectly. I think that is a good fit. What I do think that he lacks, though, is I think that, one, his deep speed is not the greatest. I think he's 4.5 to 4.55. Like, I think it's solid. I don't think it's great, but for 6'2" corner, it's not bad. It's not like the worst thing in the world. But I think that my biggest problem with Kaiir is I don't think that he's the cleanest transition of all time. So I think that when you put him in man, and specifically off man, there's going to be some limitations to him when we're facing more flexible, maybe quicker players on the outside. When you're facing your Terry McLaurins and your Stephon Diggs and those kind of guys that are really nice route runners who get in and out of breaks smoothly, I think that he's not going to work the best in off man. In press, as long as he gets his hands on him, he's good to go. Zone, he's good to go. But obviously the problem in press man is, hey, if you are a little off in your technique at the line of scrimmage, he gets in the recovery mode. I don't think his speed is quite to the highest degree. And I think it's the same thing a little bit with Patrick Surtain. Surtain actually ended up testing pretty well. I don't think that the play speed was quite as fast as he tested, though. And I think that Kaiir Elam's in the same ballpark. So press man system, can play some zone concepts, a little stiff. I don't want to say stiff, a little not the most flexible and quick-footed guy to play a bunch of off man. So I think that's kind of the best systems. And I would agree, Derek. I think that those are his biggest negatives. I would also say is long speed and that short area quickness. So, but in press man system, first round caliber player, in my opinion. 2 more questions. David, this one's a funny one. Ready? So we have Stephanie Bellini asked at Football Fan 6365. She said, where do you think Cole Kelly lands? David, I want to tell you about this Cole Kelly, and you tell me your thoughts. Ready? Quarterback, Southeast Louisiana, Arkansas transfer, was at Arkansas, played a little bit early in his career. Then I think he didn't win the quarterback spot, so he transferred to Southeast Louisiana. I think also there was some legal issue, but I don't want to. I remember there was a legal issue. I don't remember exactly what it was, so I don't want to put any false info out there. So, David, have you ever heard of a quarterback this big? Okay, for a second, have you ever heard of a quarterback this big? 6'7" and 4/8 verified, so 6'7.5", 270 pounds.
That's like the hefty lefty out of Kentucky, but 4 inches taller.
Brother, he would be a big tight end. Like, he's a huge tight end. And he's playing, and like, hey, man, hats off to him because he was the National Player of the Year this past spring, which is cool because he's the only guy that will ever do that, probably be the spring MVP for the FCS on the FCS level. And he's averaging like 400 yards passing so far in the fall. But that being said, where do I think he's going to land? I think there's going to be a big debate on what he is, man. At some
He's
point, dude, it's just,
what's the guy for Logan Thomas?
yeah. But the problem is Cole Kelly's not that athlete, dude. Like he's all right. He's like probably like a 4'9", 5 flat guy, which for 270 pounds is pretty good. But like he's not. I mean, Logan Thomas ran like a 4'5" something, 4'6". Like he can move a little bit. You know what I mean? So it's tough, man. I don't think that he's a quarterback at the next level. I've been on this, and some people very much disagree with me, and that's fine. But I just think at some point you're too big for the position, to be honest. Like Brock Osweiler, there's a Dan McGuire back in the day. There's a lot of guys at that height that just, I mean, when you get over 6'6", historically speaking, the data says don't have a good career or you don't have much of a chance of sticking long term. So I don't think he's a
I
quarterback.
actually have a study that's over 6'5".
Is there
If you're over
6'5"?
6'5", it's hard because when we were drafting Jamarcus Russell back in the day, I had to do the study for Mr. Davis.
Yeah.
And if you're over 6'5", and if he gets to like 6'5" and 6'8",
Yeah.
it's really negative because, and here's why, because your arm's too long and your release, not only your release range,
Right.
it gets exposed to the rushers too much coming around the corner, but also the release quickness is just not there, and that's just a genetical thing. If a 6'7" quarterback were to work, they would be like a Shaq, where it would be very, very rare to have a big person with that kind of quick twitch to get the ball out in timing well enough to survive at the NFL level. And you always hear about, oh, that quarterback's getting the ball out quick. That guy's getting the ball out quick. That guy's getting the ball out quick. When you're 6'7", your arms are 34, 35, maybe even 35 and a half inch arms. A standard quarterback has between 31 and 33 and 7/8. They're underneath 34 inches. So, I personally like quarterbacks that have like 32 and a half inch arms with a 10 hand, because that in itself will give you a good lever to throw with and give you a good spin on the ball, good ball control, because your hand's so big. So you can take a guy like Russell Wilson. I think his arm length is 31 and 6/8, and he has a 10 and a quarter hand or something like that. So that's why you see really good ball placement with him. So, there's just measurables that actually translate really well. A guy that big, not only his weight wise, but just his arm length wise, it's going to be a struggle. So, he's got to, if he wants to play at the next level, he has to be open to transitioning to a different position.
Yeah, and I just pulled out the verified measurables from Blesto this spring, David. 6'7" and 4/8. I was correct there. 270 pounds was also correct. Hand size 9 7/8. Big hands. And
under 10. That's small. For a guy that big, you would imagine he would have 11 hands, honestly. Like he's a big dude.
But 34-inch arms and an 81 and a quarter inch wingspan. So this is a long dude. He's a long dude.
I mean, he actually fits a defensive end style.
Dude, he sounds like Banasek from back in the day, right? From the Raiders in like the 70s. Like he's like that dude, man. Like
dude, if he runs a 4.9 and he's got that length and he's open to transitioning to like defense and being a rush end, a team could put some investment a year or two into him and see what they get, because that's still a big guy with long wingspan. I mean, he and I'm sure at 270 he's probably watching his weight to play quarterback. You can let the boy eat a little bit, and he might grow to 290 and be 6'7" and play inside, be a great 6. He'd be a great 5 or 6 technique like a Cleus Campbell, and disrupt some people. So
I just looked up. I was out of curiosity. Check out this comp, David. Ready? So I looked up Carl Nassib, because I remember Carl Nassib when he was coming out of Penn State, obviously with the Raiders now, was similar measurables. 6'7" on the dot, 277 with 34-inch arms. Is that exactly what I just said? So yeah. So my new comp for Cole Kelly is Carl Nassib playing quarterback. So there you go. Last question of the day. So sorry, Stephanie, that was a long answer to say I don't think he's a quarterback at the next level. I think that he might get drafted late just off of the athleticism, and he's got a decent little pedigree and he's got a resume, but I think they're going to be drafting more of the build and the traits that he has more than the ability for him to play quarterback. So last question of the night, Luke Kelly 65 asked thoughts on the Eagles' possible targets with those 2 short first-round picks and possibly a third. David, why don't you give me, let's partner on this one, a couple positions that you think the Eagles should target early on in next year's draft, and I will give you maybe a couple candidates that make sense in the first round.
Any.
All right.
I'm just thinking that there's a lot of holes.
Yeah.
Obviously, offensive line to me is one I would put a lot of time into. That pick out of Alabama, Dickerson, I want to say he's one of the higher penalized players in the league already. And I mean, him and Leatherwood are leading rookie offensive linemen in holding and also in false starts. Both of them are.
Sucks, man. He's so bad.
I know, but I'm just saying I looked that one up because I was looking at Leatherwood the other day and I saw, Dickerson right there with him. And I like Dickerson, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't like that pick where they took him. That all being said, I think, he's struggling right now, but they need to fix the offensive line. They need to get younger at D-line because, Bennett's going to, not play forever, even though it seems like he will. And they're also their corners, safeties are decent, but linebackers, they really need some help. I think Gainwell and Sanders at the running back position give them some great versatility. I like them. Smith is really showing, he's showing well. He really is. He's fighting through stuff. I questioned him coming out with his slider frame if he would fight through it, and he is totally fighting through it. Goddard and Ertz are a decent tandem. They're at tight end. So, again, they're not hurting at tight end. They're not hurting. I think they can use another receiver. So, if I were posing to you, I would say corner, linebacker, safety, and receiver. And O-line would be my number one to you.
Okay, I would also throw in defensive ends in there too, because Barnett, I know, might not be back next year, and Brandon Graham's coming out of an Achilles injury as well. So defensive end might also be a spot that they might want to upgrade. I'll just throw out a couple names real quick at all those positions. Offensive line, I'm going to say interior offensive line more. They just paid their left tackle. They have still Lane Johnson, even though he's going through a little bit of personal issues. So their offensive tackles are decent. Inside, I think the biggest position is center moving forward because Kelsey could retire any year. He's been talking about it for a couple of years. So center is a great class this year. If you want Tyler Lindenbaum from Iowa, Jared Patterson from Notre Dame, Ricky Stromberg Jr. from Arkansas, all very good centers. I think at least 2 out of 3 in Patterson and Stromberg are pretty scheme versatile. If you're trying to run a lot of outside zones specifically, then Linderbaum's your guy. Like, he's a plug and play outside zone center. Guards, I know that, you're talking about Dickerson. Is he going to be a long-term center? If he is the long-term center, which I know that's their hopes, they have obviously holes. Siamalu's out with an injury. They got Brandon Brooks, who's coming back from another injury. So it's got to be on the fringe of him at, maybe retiring at this point. So some guards. Ike Ekwonu from NC State's a guy. I don't know if quite first round, but I think that he has the talent to do it. Darian Kennard, who plays right tackle for Kentucky. I think he's going to be a guard inside. Reminds me a lot of Kelechi Osemele that used to play with the Oakland Raiders. Very good Pro Bowl guard there. So there's a couple guys I would definitely keep an eye on. Wide receiver, I don't know if wide receiver is it's definitely not a first round conversation, I don't think, for the Eagles, because they've drafted a wide receiver in the first round back-to-back years now. So I would say a couple secondary options. I think they might need to get a little bigger at the position. Like you said, we have Devonta Smith, who's not the biggest frame of all time. We got Jalen Reagor, who's a little bit of a smaller receiver. And then we got Quez Watkins, who's a pure deep threat receiver. So there's not a ton of size at the position. So if we're talking moving into maybe the second, third, maybe even to fourth round, we need to talk about guys like maybe Drake London falls to the second round out of USC, who's a 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver. The Ezukama, the wide receiver out of Texas Tech, is a big body wide receiver. There is a couple other guys I think that are interesting players there at wide receiver. I think that you're kind of missing all the big frame guys this year, but Justin Ross, maybe if he slides from Clemson into the second, there's a couple of guys that are worth that conversation. I think adding size.
Those two kids up there at Ohio State, could fall.
They're a
One of
little
them could.
smaller, though. They're a little small. I'm trying to add a little more size to that unit, you know?
Oh, okay.
So,
I like those two kids at Ohio State a lot. I think
and they
they're.
might, and I think, well, I love Garrett Wilson, especially. I think both of them are first round picks, though. I don't know if they're the guys. I don't
I was
think
going to
that the
say one of
Eagles
them.
can
If you had to
invest
pick one of them
there.
to slide, I would. I mean, I would wonder who you would think might slide because I think there are some good receivers. We haven't covered it. Like last week, we covered
Yeah.
the quarterbacks, and like I said, coming up, we're going to do other positions. But this year, there are some receivers that I'm extremely excited about.
From what I hear that both Ohio State receivers are well regarded. I personally think that Chris Olave is the guy that would slide out of the two of them because I just think that Garrett Wilson has inside-outside versatility. I think he is absolutely dynamic after the catch, can work all levels of the field. I think Olave is a very solid, good number 2 option in offense that is a crafty route runner, has a little bit of speed to him, but I don't think there's anything dynamic about him, especially after the catch. So I would say Olave is more the guy that slides. If we're going into defense, I mean, you should have drafted Micah Parsons this year, and you would have been fine at linebacker. But for whatever reason, the Eagles haven't drafted a linebacker, David, in the first round since 1979, just to put that into perspective of how little they value that position. Linebacker this year, not a big fan of, to be honest. But if we're looking at some guys, Henry To'oTo'o from Alabama is a guy, potentially the second round. I like Terrell Bernard from Baylor, who's a little bit of a smaller run and chase type of will, but I really do like a lot of what he brings. Christian Harris is a guy from Alabama that a lot of people like. I'm just not there with him. So I think that a guy maybe down the line a little bit in the draft could be Peyton Wilson if he decides to declare from NC State. I think he's a really good football player. I think he's a top 50 worthy player, but he's dealt with injuries. So I think he's a guy that might potentially slide, and he could be a mid-round value for him. So there's a couple guys. Defensive end, I mean, if you need a defensive end in this year's class, you're in luck, man. There are some dudes all over the board. Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon, which I know David knows, who's a super explosive, bendy rusher, great ankle flexion, really good bend as a pass rusher, and he's still figuring it out, which is really scary because he's already a pretty dominant football player, and he can only get better. If you're trying to go big body edge, and I threw edge out there, David, I don't care if you hate it or not, George Carloftus is my boy from Purdue, about 6'4", 280 pounds, real speed to power converter. He's got a lot of things to like, really powerful hands. Then if you're talking about more flexible stand-up rushers, maybe if you're playing a little bit of odd fronts at times and trying to work with a little more versatility, you got guys like Myjai Sanders from Cincinnati, who's got a lot of length to him. You got guys like Adam Anderson from Georgia, Will McDonald from Iowa State. Take your pick and your style of pass rusher this year. You can find a guy. And then
I would just go down to Georgia and go shopping. Like literally that defense in Georgia, they are balling out of control right now. Like I'm like, whoo, baby.
Well, let's go to Georgia. Let's go to Georgia.
I'm just saying, like if I'm Philly and I want to fix my defense, right?
Yep.
I just go down to Georgia and I say, I want you, you, and you. I'm picking 3 players off that defense and probably 3 different levels, you know, and saying we're gonna work with you guys, and I'm just gonna figure it out because the way that team is playing, the chemistry that they're playing with, the trust they're playing within each other, the back end is giving the front end time to get to the quarterback. The front end is using all their tools to get to the quarterback. They're stopping the run well. I mean, look at what happened against Arkansas. They completely dismantle Arkansas, and Arkansas then goes over to Ole Miss and has 500-something yards in offense. So, I mean, it's like they're doing it against dudes themselves right now. So it's like that's why I'm saying that, bro. I'm just like, what Georgia is doing on defense right now is stunning. Just stunning.
Just stunning.
Stunning.
Well, I'm going to go to Georgia for a safety here. Maybe not first round, probably more second, but Lewis Seen, who's a headhunter, man. Like he still plays that game. I know David Turner would love him because he's.
I do love him. I know who you're talking about. Again, I've been watching the dogs. I've been watching
16,
them, so I
baby.
know.
16. He hits anything that moves, and he's developing his comfortability playing on the roof, playing deep zones. So we'll see continued. He still has his flaws in pass coverage, but he's a good athlete. So I think he can get there. The guy for me, man, that can completely transform that defense. If the Eagles could get Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame in the top 10 there, safety, man, that changes everything. Because that kid is a kid that can play on the roof, could play down low in zone, could play on the second level at times. He, at 6'4", 220 pounds, he's a rare football player. So that would be my guy if I was the Eagles completely transforming your defense. That would be the dude. Couple corners. Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU, if he's there, potentially in the top 10, might be a guy. Andrew Booth from Clemson's my dude. That would be a guy that I would definitely target. And then we had a question about him earlier. If you're going to play a bunch of press man, Kyer Elam might be a guy in the first round. Maybe even if you trade back a little bit into the mid-teens, might be a guy that could be in the conversation. So I appreciate all the mailbag questions today. We're going to end you all with just something to think about, maybe a final shout-out, whatever we want to bring to the table. Just want to say that I appreciate every single week having this conversation and being able to cover real topics. There's a lot of fluff out there in the world. Everyone's talking about the same thing. And I'm glad that David Turner leaves himself vulnerable to put his real conversation and his real feelings out there in some very important topics that people try to skip over. So, David, letting you end this before I end us all tonight, brother. How are you? And what would you like to finish off with the folks?
Well, my social media post today led off what the tone for tonight was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's about accountability and being accountable to yourself first and foremost to have a successful life. You know, if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and be accountable each and every day before you rest your head on the pillow, then you have some work to do on you. Mm-hmm. And like I said today, it's as simple as don't stop saying I didn't have time to do this today. I didn't have time to do that today. You didn't make time to do this or that today. And that's fine. Like, give yourself permission. Like, I didn't have time to fold the laundry today. Cool. It's not you didn't have time. You didn't make time to fold the laundry today. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. But understand, by not making time for things in a 24-hour day, you're showing yourself and others what's important to you. Urban Meyer didn't have time to get on a plane and get home and be where he was supposed to be, which is back in Jacksonville. And so where's his accountability? His press conferences, you heard Ryan talk about, didn't stand up there and take accountability. John Gruden, where's his accountability of what he said 10 years ago? You're a man, you said it, you wrote it, you put it in an email. Stand up and take accountability. If you're not going to be accountable for your missteps, don't toast yourself when you do something right. Don't break your arm patting yourself on the back when you do something right, because it's the character of a man, a woman, a person, an individual is about who you are when the coaches isn't looking. I learned that early in life at De La Salle High School. When you go into the weight room, when you work, when you do your stuff away from the program, your character shows through because it's who you are away from when the coaches, the supervisors, the owners are looking at you. Urban Meyer and John Gruden showed us who they were this week when the coaches aren't watching. Well, guess what? Now that we know, what are we going to do? Like Ryan said earlier in the program, how are we going to turn these negatives into positives and give opportunity to individuals that are qualified and been in line for opportunities for years, that deserve opportunities? There's a list of coaches that deserve a second chance at coaching well before Urban Meyer ever gets another job or John Gruden does. Will they get those jobs, or will their color of their skin dictate that they're done?
Great message. And I would say if we would appreciate a like, share, subscription, leave us a rating. Appreciate everybody, as always, for being real each and every week. Thank you so much for continuing to help us grow. Again, all those things would be very appreciated. So we'll catch you same time, same place next week. Mav Sports Take, episode 61, signing off.